My name is Leah Madsen, 30 years old, a senior auditor at a retirement fund company based in Omaha, Nebraska. If you asked my neighbors or coworkers, they'd probably say I live a quiet life. A third-floor apartment in a calm neighborhood, no parties, no drama. The oak dining table in my home took me 6 months of saving to buy. Every chair, every curtain, none of it came from luck or handouts. I built it all myself. Every step forward came from grit, overtime, and refusal to quit. But in my family's eyes, I've always been cold, distant. Not because I yelled or cut ties, simply because I stopped cleaning up the messes they made. My sister Haley is 3 years older than me, and somehow she's never been responsible for anything. Lost her job? The boss was toxic. Got kicked out by roommates? They were jealous. Drowning in debt? Life's just too hard. And my parents, Patricia and George, never questioned a word. They adjusted, rearranged, and when they ran out of ways to fix it, they turned to me. "You're the stable one, Leah. You're lucky so you can help." That line followed me for over a decade. Like a soft but unbreakable rope. Help pay off Haley's credit card. Help cover her rent that month. Help bail her out after she was called to court for driving under the influence. Whenever I paused, just to breathe or think, I was suddenly the problem. The ungrateful one. The successful little sister who forgot her roots. I learned early that in my family, my worth wasn't measured by love. It was measured by usefulness. But even usefulness has a limit, and they were about to reach mine. I don't hate Haley, I'm just tired. And when exhaustion lasts too long, you don't cry or rage anymore. You just go quiet. That week, I had just finished a 60-hour internal audit cycle. I had barely laid down when my mom texted, "Dinner this Sunday, your dad's making that barbecue you like." Like a wind-up doll, I went. Dinner at home always had a rhythm. Extra buttered mashed potatoes, dressingless salad, and tension wrapped in polite small talk. But that night, it all felt more rehearsed than usual. My mom greeted me with a smile so wide it felt like she had just stepped off a stage. "You've lost weight, Leah. Are you even eating properly?" My dad gave a nod. "Hey there." Haley was already at the table, scrolling on her phone, pretending not to see me. Exactly how she behaves when she's done something wrong. I recognized the signs. When Mom got too sweet and Dad went silent, it meant they were about to drop something heavy on me. I hadn't touched my meat yet when Mom set her fork down, clasped her hands like she was about to pray, and spoke in a syrupy tone. "Leah, your dad and I talked. Haley's going through a rough patch, and she'll be moving in with you for a while." No question, no proposal, just a decision already made. She said it like she was asking me to share my favorite cookies, as if the answer would of course be sure. I looked at Haley. She glanced up quickly, then dropped her gaze, like my eyes could burn her. My dad cleared his throat. He was bracing for the fight they had already rehearsed in their heads. I smiled. Calm, light. If that helps Haley get back on track, I don't see why not. The air in the room went still. My mom blinked. My dad exhaled like he'd dodged a bullet. And Haley? She leaned back in her chair, that smug look slowly creeping across her face. No one noticed how motionless I became after that. No one asked if I still lived in that apartment. No one knew that what they were preparing to take over hadn't belonged to me for quite some time. I used to think being stable was a good thing, something that would reassure my parents, maybe inspire Haley to finally take responsibility for her life. But the older I got, the clearer it became. In my family, stability wasn't a value, it was a resource to be extracted. When I was 24, Haley got evicted for skipping 3 months of rent. My mom called me at 11 p.m. No greeting, no asking if I was busy, just a curt command. "Leah, your sister needs a place to stay for a few weeks." At the time, I had just been promoted and was living in a tiny loft apartment in Lincoln. It was so small that if I stretched out in the living room, my knees nearly hit the kitchen table. Still, I said yes. Haley showed up with 3 suitcases, an unannounced cat, and a storm of chaos. She stayed up until 2 or 3 a.m. every night blasting Netflix. She used my credit card to order food, then left empty containers all over the place. One day, I came home from work and found her trying on my clothes. My blouses stretched, the collars smelling like some unfamiliar perfume. When I gently brought it up, she laughed and called me a 30-year-old nun with no boyfriend. I thought it was temporary, but 1 week passed, then 2, then 6. Not a word about moving out. Every time Mom called, all she asked was, "Is your sister doing okay? Is she eating enough?" Never once, "Are you doing all right, Leah?" When I cut the TV subscription to save money, Haley acted offended. One Monday morning, I walked outside to find my car tires slashed. I never had proof it was her. But that night, she smiled way too wide as I trudged home in the rain. I told Mom Haley needed to move out. She went quiet, then said, "Leah, when did you become so cold?" I swallowed my words and replied, "I just can't keep doing this." At 26, I paid off my student loans. Haley, pushing 30, still couldn't keep a job longer than 3 months. I had taken her to job interviews, bought her first professional suit. She borrowed my laptop to work on her resume, but instead played video games and posted stories complaining about her suffocating life. Then came the year I turned 28. The year I finally decided I wouldn't save her anymore. Haley was fired for showing up late 12 times in 2 weeks. She emptied her savings to play the stock market on advice from her new boyfriend, and lost everything. Mom called, frantic. "You have to help. Your sister won't make it this time without you." I said nothing. "Leah, are you still there?" I said clearly, "I'm not sending money. And she's not moving in with me." "What are you saying?" Mom practically shouted. "Family is supposed to help each other. Or do you think you're too successful for us now?" I didn't respond. I wasn't angry, just relieved. Like I'd finally put down a weight I'd carried for over a decade. That night, Haley posted a photo of me from college on Facebook with the caption, "My once sweet sister now loves money more than blood." The post spread through the family. My aunt commented, "Can't believe Leah could be this heartless." I didn't reply, but I saved every screenshot. Weeks later, I quietly sold my old apartment, the one my family had always treated like some sort of shared asset, since I bought it with money earned thanks to their upbringing. I moved to a smaller unit on the west side of town. No one knew the address. No one had a key. I didn't disappear. I just stopped being a bottomless wallet, a human levee holding back a flood of never-ending mistakes. My silence wasn't a war, it was self-defense. I left that dinner with a bag of cold barbecue my mom shoved into my hand, and one lingering sentence in my head. "Your sister's moving in with you." Haley didn't say a word as I left. She just gave a slight nod, as if everything had been settled. As if my apartment, my life, was some sort of reward granted to her by default after a long streak of failures. Driving home, I turned the music up loud to drown out the tight knot forming in my throat. But even the jazz I usually found calming only sounded ironic now. I didn't return to the old apartment on Lincoln Street. I turned toward the west side of the city, into a quiet suburban complex lined with maple trees, already turning red for early fall. Here, no one knew my name. Neighbors exchanged polite glances. No one asked about family. No one cared what the name Madsen meant. The new apartment was smaller, but clean and bright, the kind of space that let me breathe. I repainted the window frames myself, swapped out the warm yellow bulbs for soft white lights. Every night, I sipped chamomile tea on the balcony, read a book, or simply watched people walk their dogs. No one yelled. No one knocked, asking for anything. 3 weeks before that fateful dinner, I had already sold the old apartment to a newlywed couple. They paid in cash. The transaction was swift. I didn't tell my mother. No one asked, and I wasn't offering. My lawyer handled the paperwork. I changed my mailing address, transferred all utilities to the new place. And no, I didn't feel guilty. Not for a second. The Monday after that dinner, I got a text from my mom. "Your dad's going to help Haley move her things Saturday. I'm sure you don't mind if she comes early to get settled in." I set the phone down. I didn't reply. That evening, Haley texted, "I'll bring my old desk. Hope it doesn't take up too much space." I turned off my phone. No one asked if I still lived there. No one confirmed the address. In their minds, Leah, the stable one, would always be the default landing pad. Friday came. 2 missed calls from my mom. No voicemail. I imagined her packing Haley's things like she was sending her daughter off to a spa retreat. Saturday morning, I got up early, made a hot cappuccino, pulled on a thick sweater, and drove out to Circle Zorinsky Lake. I walked slow around the water's edge, watched sunlight ripple on the surface. I had nowhere to be, no reason to rush. Around noon, my phone started vibrating. 7 missed calls. 1 voicemail. I listened to it. My mother's voice was sharp. Gone was any sweetness. "Leah, there's a strange man here. He says this apartment doesn't belong to you anymore." What kind of joke is this? In the background, I heard my dad curse. Haley yelled, "What?" I hung up. 5 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, I picked up. "Leah, you sold the apartment?" my mom screamed. "You didn't tell anyone? You let a stranger live there and told your sister she could move in?" I kept my tone flat. "I never said she could move in there. You said, if it helps Haley." "I don't see why not," she shouted, reciting the words like she was reading an indictment. I smiled lightly. "Yeah? But I never said where." I let the silence hang. On the other end, nothing. Like they'd just woken from a dream, where I always said yes. Then Haley screamed, "Where am I supposed to go now?" "Leah, I rearranged my entire life because of that damn agreement. You're not going to say anything?" I looked out at the lake. A duck glided smoothly across the water, calm and deliberate. I spoke softly. "I just didn't think someone would pack up their life and move into a place without confirming something as basic as whether it's still theirs." "You're truly selfish," my dad cut in. "We're your family, Leah. This is how you treat us?" I sighed. "I'm tired of being the only one acting like an adult in this family. If that makes me the bad guy, then fine." I hung up. That day, I didn't go home right away. I watched a movie alone, then had lunch at a quiet Italian place downtown. No more calls. No more messages. I wasn't born intending to carry my entire family. But somehow, I was pushed into that role before I ever learned how to say no. At 22, freshly graduated and starting my first job at a small accounting firm, Haley had already dropped out of school 3 times and was unemployed. One Monday morning, I got a tearful call from her. "Leah, I need a car to get to work. They said they'll hire me at the beauty store, but I need transportation. You know I've changed." She couldn't afford a car, so I signed for her. A 2010 Honda Civic, $340 a month. My name on the loan. Haley swore up and down she'd pay. "I just need help for the first 6 months. After that, I'll be stable." I foolishly believed her. 4 months later, the car was repossessed in the middle of the night after she missed 3 payments. I had no idea until my credit score plummeted and the bank sent me a warning letter. Haley had already quit the job. The manager was too aggressive, she said. I confronted her. She shrugged. "I didn't have the money." "You think I wanted this? You're being dramatic." I said nothing. I called the bank, negotiated a settlement. It took nearly a year to repair the credit damage. Haley never apologized. My mom simply sighed. "You're the responsible one, Leah. It's not like this ruined your life." At 25, my mom called crying. "Your dad's hours got cut, and we can't cover this month's mortgage. If we don't pay by the 15th, we'll get hit with penalties. I didn't ask questions. I wired $2,500 the next morning. No one said thank you. That Christmas, I got a cheap picture frame and a comment. "Leah is the light of this family." I smiled, thinly. A light they only switched on when the power went out. At 27, Haley was arrested for driving drunk after a party with her boyfriend. She called me in a panic. "Leah, I only had 2 drinks. The cops blew it out of proportion. You have to help me. You know I've got no one else." I hired a lawyer. $3,800. Then. Silence. No calls, no thanks. When I finally asked about it, Haley said, "I thought you did it because I'm your sister. Didn't realize you were keeping score." I didn't respond. I just wrote it down, not to count, but to remember. At 28, she got in trouble again, this time for smashing up her boyfriend's apartment during a fight. I refused to intervene. My mom called, furious. "Leah, you think you're better than everyone? Your sister's spiraling and all you care about is yourself." I gripped the phone. "No, Mom. I finally learned how to care about myself." That was the moment it all clicked. They had never truly seen me. I wasn't a person. I was a function. A smiling ATM, a fixer, someone born to make things smoother. I remember having the flu so bad I couldn't stand, yet still submitted my reports on time. No one checked in. But when Haley once texted, "I'm hungry," my mom wired $200 and called 3 times. I also got laid off during a round of budget cuts. Haley never messaged. My parents never found out. I didn't tell them. I already knew how it would go. I started sorting memories like old closets. Boxes of forgotten favors. Receipts I kept because I feared they'd come back asking for more. Screenshots of texts I reread, hoping to find even one thank you that never came. I started deleting expectations, one by one. No one is born to be the foundation for people who refuse to stand on their own. And I, Leah Madsen, took nearly 30 years to understand that. That night, I sat in my new apartment, warm lamplight reflecting off a cup of tea. Outside the window, the city kept moving. And for the first time, I had stepped off the treadmill of a role I never agreed to play. I opened my laptop, created a folder named The Truth. Every receipt, every statement, every message, I saved it all. Not for revenge, but so that the next time they call me ungrateful, I won't need to explain. I'll just send a link. I signed the papers to sell my old apartment on a Tuesday morning, just as a light rain began to fall and the law office had barely opened its doors. Everything was quiet, neat, without fuss. Exactly how I wanted it. The buyer was a single woman working in tech. She said she liked the area because it was close to downtown, but quiet enough to hear the birds in the morning. I simply nodded. I had lived through those mornings. Just never had the time to actually listen. After the paperwork was done, I changed my mailing address, canceled every utility, and terminated my internet contract. I hired a cleaning company to scrub the place down, repainted the walls, even replaced the doorknobs. I left nothing behind except a small welcome basket for the new owner. I didn't want to return. I didn't want anyone to find traces of me there. A few weeks had passed since that fateful dinner. Everything seemed calm on the surface. Haley was probably busy packing, imagining the cozy little room her nice sister had surely prepped for her. Meanwhile, I enjoyed my mornings in the new apartment, where curtains didn't get yanked open, where no one rummaged through my fridge, where my shoes stayed exactly where I left them. I still went to work, still made coffee with that old machine I'd bought during my internship, still walked around the lake on weekends. But something inside me had shifted. Like a rope that had been wrapped around my ribs for years had finally been loosened, and I hadn't realized how tightly it was wound until it was gone. Then came Saturday morning. I was sitting at my usual coffee shop when my phone started buzzing non-stop. 4 missed calls from my mom, 3 from Haley, 2 from my dad. I wasn't planning to answer, but then a text popped up that made me open the phone. Leah, there's a black man in your apartment. He says you don't live here anymore. What the hell is going on? I blinked, then laughed. Out loud. I leaned back in my chair, feeling like a boulder had just been lifted from my chest. Haley called again. I let it ring 5 times before I answered. Leah, are you insane? We came with all our stuff, suitcases, even a microwave. That guy said this is his place. You sold the apartment? I sipped my cappuccino. Yep. Where am I supposed to sleep now? You didn't warn anyone. You said I could move in. I kept my voice steady. No, I didn't. I said, if that helps you, I don't see why not. I never said where. There was a crash in the background. I assumed my mom had dropped something. My dad grabbed the phone. What are you playing at? You made us all look like fools. Fix this. Now. I answered plainly. No. I don't live there anymore. I had the right to sell it. I don't need anyone's permission. This is how you treat your family, Leah? Your sister's got nowhere to go tonight. I closed my eyes for a beat. That's not my problem anymore. I hung up. Less than 30 minutes later, I saw all 3 of them through the peephole of my new place. My mother, my father, Haley. The trunk of their car was wide open, cardboard boxes scattered along the curb. Their faces flushed, not from the cold. I didn't open the door right away. I let them stand there. The way I had stood in silence for years, waiting for someone to notice. Finally, I opened it a crack. So, you found me, I said flatly. Leah. My mom pushed forward. We need to talk. What you did was completely unacceptable. I didn't invite anyone here, I replied, one hand still on the lock. Haley shoved past her, jaw clenched. This is how you treat your own sister? I rearranged my entire life to move in with you. You think I want to go back to sleeping in my car? I let out a short laugh. If someone rearranges their life based on one vague sentence and never confirms anything, that's not the speaker's fault. That's arrogance. Haley cursed. My dad stepped between us, raising his voice. Leah, we've tolerated enough from you. You don't get to turn your back on this family. I didn't respond. I just took out my phone, opened the app and tapped, Report Trespassing. As soon as my dad saw the words on screen, he stepped back. You wouldn't, my mom whispered. You can't call the police on your own family. I looked her straight in the eye. You're wrong. And this time, I didn't just close the door. I locked it. From the inside. I stood just inside the locked door, phone still in hand. Outside, my mother's voice rang out, sharp with fury. Leah, open this door right now. You're cutting off your entire family over some cheap apartment? I didn't respond. My eyes stayed on the screen, finger hovering over Report Trespassing. For 30 years, I'd lived this same one-sided script. They speak, I comply. They demand, I deliver. This time, I wasn't playing. Haley started banging on the door. What the hell are you doing? I brought all my stuff. You think I have anywhere else to go? Her voice was frantic. The sound of someone drowning, reaching out one last time to pull me under with her. I took a deep breath, turned toward the kitchen, and poured myself another cup of tea. The door shook behind me, but my hand didn't. I had prepared for this moment. Not with weapons, not with schemes, but with clarity. The kind that cost you your youth to earn. Then the doorbell rang again. This time it was my father's voice, hoarse and bitter. We've had enough of your selfishness, Leah. You're not a kid anymore. Families don't work this way. You don't just cut people off. I turned and opened the door slightly, just enough to look them in the eyes. I'm not cutting anyone off, I said, my tone calm as ice. I'm drawing a boundary, and as always, none of you can accept that. My mother stepped forward, eyes blazing. A boundary? Families don't have boundaries, Leah. Your sister needs a place to stay. She's blood. You can't let her sleep in a car. I held her gaze without blinking. And what am I, Mom? Blood? Or just a default shelter for everyone else to wreck their lives in peace? Haley pushed forward, her face flushed with anger. You're doing this out of spite, I know it. You've always been jealous because I got more attention, and now that you've got money, you're kicking us out like strays, huh? I let out a quiet laugh, not loud, but enough to make all three of them flinch. Haley, no one is jealous of having maxed out credit cards, getting fired 3 times a year and being over 30 while still mooching off your little sister. Her mouth fell open, but I raised a hand to stop her. I don't live in the old apartment anymore, and I never said you could move into this one. I said, if it helps you, I don't see why not. That was about a place I no longer owned. Leah? My father growled. I turned away, grabbed my phone and pressed the call button. What are you doing? My mother asked, her voice tight, scanning my face for something she didn't want to find. I lifted the phone to my ear. A female voice answered on the line. 911, what's your emergency? I spoke clearly. Yes, I have 3 individuals outside my apartment, yelling and attempting to force entry. They're not on my lease, they weren't invited, and they're disturbing the peace. I'd like to report a trespassing incident. Haley's eyes widened. You're calling the police on your own family? You've lost it. I didn't turn back. You're the one who dragged your belongings to a place you never confirmed. That's not on me. I gave the dispatcher my address. While I was speaking, my mother grabbed my father's arm, whispering something urgent. He shook his head, face burning red. Haley glared at me like she could burn the apartment down with her stare. I swear, Leah, I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are, the whole family, social media. I'll tell them everything. I looked at her, not angry, just tired. Say whatever you want, this time I'll speak too, with receipts, contracts, and screenshots. I began to close the door. I'm not asking you to leave because I hate you, I said softly. I'm asking because I'm no longer your foundation. What kind of family only values sacrifice when it flows one way? Then I shut the door. Not to hide, but to live. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls and 32 messages. 4 from my mom, 6 from Haley. The rest were from unknown numbers I hadn't saved. I didn't need to open them to know what they said. I sat up and pulled back the curtains. Morning light filled the room like nothing had changed, but I knew better. They were starting their counterattack. I opened my phone. Haley's message was at the top. Hope you're happy. Mom's sobbing because the neighbors are gossiping. Dad's so mad his blood pressure's spiking. What kind of person calls the cops on their own family? Scrolling down, I saw a screenshot of a public Facebook post from my mother. 3 paragraphs. Punctuation exploding with exclamation marks, peppered with crying emojis and broken hearts. Beside it, a photo of me as a child, grinning in a purple princess dress, sitting next to Haley. We raised 2 daughters, with all the love and sacrifice we had. But it breaks our hearts that one has become so cold and heartless she'd kick her own sister out. Haley's not perfect, but she has a heart. Leah is no longer the daughter we once knew. Hundreds of likes, nearly 60 comments. Kids these days only think about themselves. Leah? Can't believe it. I met her at church. Thought she was one of the good ones. Family is about love, not choosing who's convenient. I didn't feel angry, just tired. I expected this. Haley couldn't handle silence. My mom had always loved dragging the public into private drama. They knew how to weaponize perception. But this time, I came prepared. I opened my laptop, clicked into the folder titled, The Truth. I dragged out every file. The car loan agreement, with my name on it. The bank transfer showing $2,500 sent to my parents in July 2021. The lawyer's invoice from Haley's DUI case with the note, Urgent, keep confidential for family. Next. Screenshots of texts from 3 years ago. Haley. I'll just stay a month. You know I'm trying, right? Haley. You're the most boring robot I've ever met. No one wants to live with someone like you. I didn't write a long caption, no rants. Just posted each screenshot with a short, calm line. I didn't abandon my family, I just stopped being an emotional and financial servant for people who never said thank you. 30 minutes later, the post had over 1,000 shares. A college friend commented, I remember when you skipped vacation because you said my sister's in trouble again. There's nothing wrong with knowing your limits. A coworker DM'd me. Good for you. Sometimes family are just strangers who drain you with more entitlement. I didn't respond to everyone. I didn't need validation. I just needed the truth out in the open. Haley didn't stay quiet for long. That night she posted a video on Instagram. Eyes red, voice hoarse. I'm not perfect, but I never thought my own sister would treat me like trash. She might have money and a career, but she'll never have real family. The video had a sad piano track and the caption, Betrayal comes from where you least expect it. I watched the video, expressionless. I used to believe family bonds were unbreakable, but reality taught me otherwise. Love has to be nurtured. It's not a default setting you get to keep, no matter how many times you exploit someone. The next day, I got an email from Aunt Judith, the only relative who ever asked, Are you okay? Instead of, Why did you do that to your sister? She wrote, Leah, I'm proud of you for standing up. Independence never grows from silence. They'll twist this every way to cast you as the villain. But you and I both know who carried this family without asking for praise. I sat still for a long moment. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. That night, I didn't go online. I placed my phone face down on the table, closed the laptop, unplugged the Wi-Fi. Not because I was afraid of what might come, but because I had nothing left to say. My small apartment felt quiet, like every storm had passed and only a cold, open sky remained. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a light blanket, hands around a cup of chamomile tea. No one knocked, no calls came in. No one asked me for anything. No one needed me to explain, and that was something I never thought I'd reach. I didn't feel like I had won. I didn't feel like I'd gotten revenge. There were no fireworks, no glory, no smug satisfaction, just relief. As if, after 3 decades of being the oxygen tank for people who refuse to breathe on their own, I had finally taken off the mask and walked out of the chamber. I used to think, if I stopped helping, they'd fall apart, and when they did, they'd take me down with them. Like I was part of their collapse. But no. They just pivoted to blame, performed their tragedy for an audience, and tried to reclaim the lead role in a story I never agreed to write with them. I'm not angry they didn't understand. Now I understand. It wasn't because they couldn't, it was because they never had to. When someone always says yes, even silence feels like betrayal. I stepped onto the balcony, the air was crisp, the wind dry, laced with the scent of pine from the row of homes behind mine. Below, someone walked their dog in a red jacket, dimly lit by a street lamp. Across the way, a window was cracked open and soft jazz drifted out, faint, delicate. I wondered how many moments like this I'd missed. All those times I was too busy bracing for someone else's storm. I looked up at the sky. No stars. But I didn't need light from out there. I had enough within me now. The next day, I canceled my old phone number and opened a new line, one only friends and trusted colleagues had. All emails from my mother and Haley went straight to an autocarbon folder. I didn't delete them, I just stopped reading. I signed up for a pottery class every Thursday. No one knew, no one asked. I quietly shaped a crooked little bowl with my own hands. Uneven, flawed, but mine. I also began jogging every Sunday morning. Through the Central Park, past homes I used to walk by without seeing, back when my mind was packed with deadlines, invoices, and crisis calls. I didn't tell anyone new about my past. Not out of shame, but because I no longer needed to prove anything. I used to be the good daughter, the thoughtful one, the one who always showed up when needed. But no one can survive that role forever. That role has no breaks, no rewrite, and an audience that assumes you'll never stop performing. I didn't walk away out of bitterness. I didn't build walls out of spite. I drew boundaries because I deserve air. I once thought I was lonely, but I wasn't. I just never had the chance to be truly alone. One time, while waiting in line for coffee, an older woman turned and smiled at me. She said, "Sweetheart, you look so peaceful. Like nothing's weighing on you." I just smiled. She didn't see the nights I stayed up until dawn, the swallowed messages, the tears I choked back after being blamed by the people who were supposed to love me. But now, I didn't need her to. Peace isn't given. It's built. Decision by decision. Every no. Every choice to stand up for yourself, even when the world turns its back. They might call me ungrateful, a cold sister, a bad daughter. But I know the truth. I didn't walk away from my family. I walked away from the role they refused to let me stop playing, the one that never got a day off. I made it to the end of a journey I never chose. And for the first time in my life, I don't need a dramatic finale. I just need to live. On my terms. No apologies. No explanations. No looking back. Leah's story is a powerful reminder that kindness should never become an endless obligation just because we're born into a family. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal, it's a form of survival when love is treated like an open credit line. In real life, if you constantly sacrifice just to keep the peace, remember, you don't have to lose yourself to be seen as good. Sometimes true freedom begins with one firm no. What do you think about Leah's decision? Was she being too harsh, or finally protecting herself after years of thankless giving? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more deep, real family stories.